Joining us now, Grover Norquist, the tax guru from ATR. Grover, great to have you with us.
Glad to be with you.
Now, before I get to your favorite subject, the IRS and some of the shenanigans that have gone on, I know that you listen to our show, Grover, religiously. I know that.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that. And you've got some ideas on Virginia, especially one of the candidates. Now, we've had Corey Stewart on. He's the chairman of Prince William County, chairman of the supervisor. I take issue with him because I asked him point blank. I said, what's the deal? You've raised taxes several times. He said, no, I've never raised taxes. But then you check the record, and the taxes there have gone up every single time. So I just get aggravated when somebody says they didn't increase taxes, and they did. You've kind of followed this thing. Give me Grover's take.
Sure. Step one, looking forward, all of the candidates for Lieutenant Governor, other than former Senator Jeannemarie Davis, they've all signed the pledge saying they won't raise taxes. Davis says she's open to tax increases. She voted for the Warner tax increase, the Kane tax increase, and says she would have voted for the McDonnell increase. So she's a serial tax increaser and says she'll do it again. Now, the other guys all say they won't raise taxes, but then the question you just dealt with is, what do they think they mean by that? Corey Stewart has voted for a number of property tax increases, but his argument is, well, it shouldn't count as a tax increase because property values were dropping so rapidly that the county only got the same amount of money. Well, that kind of looks at it from the government's perspective, not from the taxpayer's perspective. Taxpayers, I'm supposed to be paying a certain percentage of my property value. My property value falls. I expect to see my taxes go down, unless Corey Stewart supports a change in the law to keep the taxes up. So I think when you're talking of, not I think, one knows, when you're talking about whether you raise taxes or not, if you change the law in order to get more money out of the pockets of citizens than would have happened without your law, then that's a tax increase.
My point exactly. I mean, that's my point exactly.
Yeah, and you can make an argument for it or against it. I think we need to be reducing taxes, not keeping them at the same level. As people get poorer, they raise taxes and then go, it's all the same because what matters is how much money the government gets. Right. Actually, what matters is how much money is taken away from the people who earned it, and it's kind of their money. It's not the government's money. And there's a different view from that some people have, which is, well, the government's needs come first, and then the citizens get to keep what's left over. And as long as the government's made whole, somehow we are all okay. I think taxpayers, and certainly I as a taxpayer advocate, look at it from the standpoint of taxpayers and citizens as to whether something's a tax increase. So there are a series of tax increases that Corey Stewart agreed to in 2009, 2011, 2012, raising rates up as property values were falling. When people could less afford to pay higher taxes, they got higher taxes. The other candidates have a pretty Ligenfelter did vote for 3202, the 2007 tax increase, but he's been very clear that he thought that was a mistake and that he would not do that again. So I think there's value in somebody who says, I made a mistake, that isn't happening again. There's a challenge when somebody says, I've never made a mistake, I've never raised taxes, and you look back at it, yes, they did. And then they go, but I won't raise them in the future. Does it mean you won't raise them in the future the way you didn't raise them in the past, which is a raise? That's a little problematic, and I hope that Corey Stewart will rein in his assertion that his votes for higher taxes were in fact votes for higher taxes, and something that should not happen again. So but that's the big one. And Pete Snyder and Bishop Jackson don't have. We're not elected officials, so they don't have votes on those tax issues, but both of them have taken the pledge not to raise taxes.
What about State Senator Steve Martin?
Martin has a generally... let me pull Martin. He voted for the original draft of 3202, against Keynes' amendments, which were tax hikes, and he was a strong opponent of McDonald's tax hike. And he's taken the pledge. He's generally been sound on taxes.
What about Stafford's chairman of supervisors, Susan Simpson?
Susan Simpson voted for a tax increase, $28 on $100, a property tax increase in 2010. So she has a vote for a tax increase. That's the one that we found. If there are others, I don't have them.
Grover, as you know, I was a leading advocate and cheerleader of the Virginia 2013 Great Transportation Compromise. So does that mean I'm not going to get an invitation to your office Christmas party?
Well, what we're looking for is some way of making the nice taxpayers of Virginia whole. So if you can bring enough resources to make up for all the higher taxes they'll be paying, then we'll be fine.
Okay, I got a couple more questions on this IRS brewing scandal. If you could stay with us, we've got to get a quick word
Sure.
from our sponsors. When we come back, though, Grover Norquist on the Internal Revenue Service. Are they going to target him next? This is the John Fredericks Show. Stay with us.
Build his future at Hargrave Military Academy. Hargrave excels in middle school, high school, and postgraduate education. Within a structured academic boarding school environment, Hargrave develops the whole person and provides for life's lessons both in and out of the classroom. Through academics, athletics, character, and morals, Hargrave has delivered an ongoing success rate since 1909, and their college preparatory boasts a 99% college acceptance rate. Learn more about Hargrave Military Academy and how their whole person development can build his future. Learn more by attending an educational and informative open house at Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia on Saturday, June 8th at 12:30 p.m. Call 1-800-434-2480 for more information. That's 1-800-434-2480. Or visit www.hargrave.edu. Hargrave Military Academy. Build his future.
The future of the Republican Party in Virginia is at stake. On Saturday, May 18th, over 13,000 registered Republican delegates are descending on the Richmond Coliseum to nominate their candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. The John Fredericks Show and the Washington Times will be right in the thick of it, bringing you all the action with a live, gavel-to-gavel radio internet coverage. Virginia, once a reliable red state, is on the brink of turning blue. The stakes for the Virginia GOP couldn't be any higher. Who will emerge as the nominees for Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General? Catch all the action live with our gavel-to-gavel anchored radio internet coverage brought to you by the John Fredericks Show and the Washington Times. We'll have all the speeches, live coverage of each ballot, and a who's who of state and national politicos commenting on all the action in real time. Listen to all the action live starting at 10 a.m. Saturday, May 18th. Just go to WashingtonTimes.com and select the media tab. That's WashingtonTimes.com and the John Fredericks Show, your source for RPV convention news.
Welcome back to the John Fredericks Show, Common Sense for the Commonwealth. We're with Grover Norquist. He's the founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, this IRS scandal, unbelievable to me that two people in Cincinnati, as I was saying earlier, they got mad. They got to make us believe they got mad because the Bengals got beat in the playoff game. It absolutely makes no sense. I link it back to their desire to ensure that Obamacare passes so they can expand the agency, add thousands of agents, and continue to harass the public, job security. What say you?
Well, I was just in Chicago for the last 2 days, and everybody in Chicago said, of course a Chicago politician behaves this way. They think that this is the way politics is done. When you run the assessor's office, you raise the tax assessments on all the Republicans in the state or anybody who votes against you or doesn't show up to do what you want to do. I met with a legislator from Illinois who said, I got elected, never been audited before. As soon as I got elected to the state legislature, I got audited. So this is the way Obama's friends play politics. He doesn't have to send a memo to anybody. Remember he stood up there and he screamed, these people, remember the Department of Homeland Security was suggesting that people like, Tea Party people were probably terrorists and so on.
Right.
Hint.
Right.
When Henry the Second, the British king, announced, who will rid me of this turbulent priest, he didn't have to say, would somebody go down and murder Thomas Becket? They got the joke. You tell people enough times that you want something to happen bad to somebody, they figure it out. And unfortunately, the IRS has done this again and again in its past. I served on the IRS Restructuring Commission, a congressional White House commission back in the 90s. And then conservative groups were being audited here in D.C. during the Clinton years, surprise, surprise. And I asked the head of the IRS, I said, I've talked to a bunch of conservative groups that are getting audited. I've called my left-of-center friends. None of them are being audited. Why is this happening? Oh, no, we picked them fairly randomly. Could you tell us how and why it just happens to hit conservatives and not the left-of-center groups? No, you're going to have to trust us. At which point the good senator from Nebraska, Bob Kerry, said, okay, I think we've really exhausted this issue. Let's talk about something else. So they did this during the Clinton years. Richard Nixon, people say, oh, remember the enemies list?
Right.
The enemies list was 20 people that Chuck Colson said, these are annoying people, and somebody said, we should go have the government annoy those people. And so they went to the IRS and said, could you audit them? And the IRS said no. Okay. The difference being the IRS didn't say no to Clinton and didn't say no to Obama. And at some point, you have to wonder whether there's a willingness on the part of the IRS to go after people who represent taxpayers in a way that they don't want to go after people who annoy Richard Nixon.
What about my theory that if the Republicans were to have won in 2012, Obamacare would have been thrown overboard, and that IRS executives had a self-interest in Obamacare passing, job security, coupled with the fact that if you read the bill, it calls for an unprecedented expansion of IRS agents and offices to ensure that people are compliant with Obamacare. Do you think that may have played into it as well?
That's very possible, because there is some part of Obamacare that asks for what, more than 10,000 more IRS
10,000 additional agents.
Yeah.
I mean, Grover, think about it. Think about taking the IRS as you know it now and then adding 10,000 people, 10,000 agents. That's a huge
demonstrated,
number.
the IRS has demonstrated that they will use their power to go after the political enemies of President Obama. Now, when they also have your health care records, what else do you think they can do to you or anybody that they don't like? Or the guys at AP, never mind although I think the IRS thought that AP meant American Patriot, and that's why they went after him. But anyway, that was just
rather
a
than
mistake.
Associated Press, right?
Yeah.
Very so. I tell you what, you raise a good question. I mean, if you think they're affrontive now, wait till they get a hold of everybody's medical record. This thing is a very scary situation. And I was saying earlier that it to me it cuts partisan lines, because you put this much power in the hands of bureaucrats with ultimate authority to harm people. Bad things are going to happen. Grover, we got 10 seconds. Give me your final word on Virginia. You got a prediction?
I do think that the Republicans will win the governorship and the lieutenant governorship, because taxes are too front and center. Terry McAuliffe is an interesting guy, but he's not from Virginia. He's not of Virginia, and he's just playing national politics.
Okay, that's it. That's the final word. We're out of time. Grover Norquist, founder and president of TR, thanks for being with us. This